The tension was already thick before Donald Trump even stepped onto the stage. Behind his desk, Jimmy Kimmel sat with his usual smirk. Only this time, it felt just a little more forced. The audience, buzzing with anticipation, had no clue what was about to unfold, but they could feel it. This wasn't just another interview. As the announcer called Trump's name, the camera panned to the side. Applause filled the room, but it was mixed. Cheers, boos, and those hesitant, awkward claps from people unsure how they were supposed to react. The response was expected, yet there was a weight to it, an unspoken understanding that this wouldn't be one of Kimmel's usual lighthearted segments. Trump strode onto the stage just as he always did, head high, confidence unshaken by the mixed reception. He waved as if the entire audience was cheering for him, took his seat, adjusted his suit jacket, and leaned back. Kimmel wasted no time with small talk. The grin was still there, but his eyes had a sharper edge, his posture subtly different. He wasn't here to play nice. The first few minutes? Standard late-night fare. Some political banter. A few jokes at Trump's expense, the kind that late-night hosts had perfected. But then, Kimmel's tone shifted. The jokes slowed. The smirk faded just a little. Leaning forward, elbows resting on his desk, he locked eyes with Trump and introduced a topic that would change the entire course of the interview: race. Trump's posture stiffened slightly. He'd been asked about race relations, white supremacy, and controversial remarks more times than he could count. But something about Kimmel's approach felt different. This wasn't just a question. It was a challenge. Kimmel didn't simply ask if past comments could be seen as racist. He didn't just quote statements or reference policies. No, he laid it all out. The rhetoric, the history, the support from certain groups. The implication was unmistakable. Kimmel wasn't asking if Trump had misspoken. He was asking if, at his core, Trump was a racist. The audience tensed. The usual background laughter that filled late-night interviews? Gone. A few gasps echoed through the room, a sign that even they hadn't expected Kimmel to be this direct, this fast. Trump's face remained composed, but there was a shift in his demeanor, a flicker of irritation in his eyes. The way he adjusted in his chair. He had faced tough questions before, battled combative interviewers and hostile journalists, but he hadn't expected this from Jimmy Kimmel. And that's where the first real crack formed. The moment when the playful late-night energy started to crumble into something more unpredictable. Trump wasn't about to let that slide. And Kimmel? He wasn't backing down. A heavy silence followed Kimmel's words, one of those thick, coiled pauses that stretches just long enough to feel dangerous. Trump remained measured, but the irritation behind his eyes was clear. He straightened in his chair, adjusted his cuffs, took a deep, deliberate breath, the kind that signaled he was calculating his next move. And then he did what Trump always did. He went on the offensive. He dismissed the accusation outright, shaking his head with that signature "Can you believe this?" exasperation. The audience reacted, some laughs, some boos, some murmurs of anticipation. But Kimmel? He didn't laugh. He wasn't letting this turn into a joke. That was when Trump leaned in. If Kimmel was going to push, Trump was going to make a spectacle of it. His voice rose, became sharper. He threw counterpunches, accusing Kimmel of being part of the very problem he claimed to fight against. He dug up old jokes from Kimmel's past, skits that hadn't aged well, moments meant to flip the script and make Kimmel the hypocrite. But Kimmel didn't flinch. He let Trump talk. Let him try to shift the power in the room. And then, when Trump finally paused, Kimmel struck again. No vague accusations, just facts. Patterns. Speeches. Retweets. A clear, undeniable case, laid brick by brick. He wasn't just calling Trump a racist in some casual, headline-grabbing way. He was building something solid, something irrefutable. Trump's jaw tightened. He could see it now. Kimmel wasn't here for a viral soundbite. He was trying to corner him. And Trump hated being cornered. His responses became sharper, more defensive. He started interrupting, voice rising, trying to steer the conversation elsewhere. He accused Kimmel of being biased, part of the corrupt media machine that had targeted him for years. He brought up network ratings executives, implied that Kimmel was just another pawn in a scripted takedown. But Kimmel wouldn't let him escape. He leaned back, folded his arms, and just watched, as if daring Trump to prove him wrong. More quotes, more examples, more facts. And then it happened. Trump's composure cracked. The audience felt it instantly. The energy shifted. This wasn't just another heated exchange. This was personal now. Trump's face flushed. His hands moved more, jabbing the air, jabbing toward Kimmel. His voice had lost its usual controlled rhythm, becoming more raw, more erratic. And Kimmel? He smiled. Not a friendly smile, but one of quiet satisfaction. The kind that said, "I've got you exactly where I want you." Trump saw it too. The battle lines had been drawn. And now it was no longer about the interview, it was about who would break first. The easy late-night atmosphere? Gone. Replaced by something electric, unstable. The audience had stopped laughing. No polite applause. Just a heavy, held-breath tension. Trump was agitated now. His voice had climbed a notch, his movements more restless. He wasn't just responding anymore, he was fighting. And not in the way he usually did. This wasn't the confident, calculated Trump people were used to. This was a man losing control of the narrative. Kimmel stayed calm, relaxed, watching. He had Trump backed into a corner, and he knew it. Every attempt Trump made to redirect, Kimmel pulled him right back in. Over and over. Trump fired back with insults about Kimmel's career, his intelligence, his credibility. But the more he lashed out, the more he played into Kimmel's hands. And then Kimmel went for the kill. He leaned forward, gripped the edge of his desk, and hit Trump with one final, unavoidable question. Trump opened his mouth. Paused. For the first time that night, he didn't have an immediate response. He was scrambling. And the audience felt it. Then suddenly he snapped. His frustration boiled over. His voice spiked, words tumbling too fast, too raw. The carefully curated presence fractured. And Kimmel? He just sat back, arms crossed, smirking. That did it. Trump pointed a finger, his voice exploding. No more measured jabs, just pure offense. The audience shifted, uncomfortable. This wasn't late-night tension designed to entertain. This was real anger. And then Trump made his mistake. He let his emotions take over. His words came too fast, too unfiltered. And for the first time, there was no strategy behind them. Kimmel sat up, eyes sharp. He saw it. The audience saw it. And Trump saw it too. He was done. Without another word, he pushed back his chair, ripped off his mic, and stormed off. Gasps. Laughter. Applause. Shock. And Kimmel? He just turned to the camera and smiled. Because everyone watching knew, no matter how Trump spun it, Kimmel had won the night.